Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome back to our watch club for Star Wars: The Acolyte. When you're looking up to heroes, you don't have to face what's right in front of you. Welcome back to Watch Club. My name is Nate, and this is our Watch Club for Star Wars: The Acolyte, Episode 8, the finale. If you're joining us for the first time, this is Watch Club, our weekly review series, kind of like a book club, but way better. Keep in mind, we will be going into full spoilers for this series and Star Wars in general, so if you haven't watched this week's episode yet, be sure to do so, and then come right back in less than 12 parsecs. Now, before we have our memory wiped, let me introduce you to the lovely Force Wielders joining me once again. First up, he's the jovial, jurisprudent justifier of justice. Justin, the Jedi-loving Lawrence.
Yeah, you tripped over those justices, didn't you?
You know what?
You kind of like fumbled over it.
You've
been living in a cave for all this time, and then you lurked out of the shadows, and it was like, where the hell have you been this entire time?
Or you could say I'm a little nervous. I've got some senators looking into my affairs, and I might let things slip.
You have had a lot of affairs.
I've had a lot.
I will say that.
A lot. And joining alongside him, I'm seeing a vision in the Force. I've got my helmet on, and I see igniting his saber next to him. We've got the droideka dropping, death stick popping, Darcy, the dank dewback loving holocron Hudson.
Oh, I'm definitely igniting something over here.
Yeah, I think this episode is igniting. It's worth igniting your lightsaber over. We've all made it to the finale for this series. This episode first of all, it's the longest episode of this series, and it gave us a lot to discuss. So I'm going to kind of, if it's okay with you two gentlemen, I'm going to skip the normal banter.
Oh, thank God.
Let's get right to this week's episode titled The Acolyte, directed by Hanelle M. Culpepper. Episode 8, the finale, brings us right back to Brendok as we hear Osha breathing heavily inside the stranger's helmet. Qimir approaches, and Osha starts to gasp, choking. Both of them are kind of getting choked out, and Qimir, now with his eyes black, we get to sort of see inside his head as he reaches towards her, struggling to remove the helmet. He manages to remove it, and the two of them gasp for breath. Osha says she saw May with a saber in one hand and her other hand outstretched, and that she was killing Soul. Qimir comes to the realization that Osha saw the future and that May can kill with no weapon. Osha convinces Qimir that they can travel together, with Qimir stating that they'll see who gets to May first. So let's dive in right here. Before we continue, Darcy, what did you think of this moment? And do you think that Osha, who do you think was choking Osha in this moment?
It's weird. I don't really know how to interpret it after seeing where the episode ends and the future she saw. Mm-hmm. It's kind of weird how Qimir reacted too. That was more what I took away. It's almost like he knew that the future she saw wasn't exactly what she interpreted it as, which is the interesting thing. What I love is the fact that it shows how strong he is, that he was able to fight through this possession that we've seen overtake Master Jedi in past episodes and still managed to pull out of it type thing, which was really cool to see.
Yeah. He definitely has his mind fortified. He is skilled, which is why I don't necessarily think of him as a Sith, but again, we can talk about that later. But I later, based on the events of what happened, I was interpreting this that Osha was said that it was May that she was seeing with her hand out, reaching out. I actually then thought she thought it was May, but it was actually herself that she was seeing in that moment. So she misinterpreted it. And by
which
extension,
is confirmed in the episode, yeah.
For sure, absolutely. So that's where originally I was under the impression that she was seeing potentially the future, and she knew May was gonna have that moment to kind of get the revenge that she wanted against Soul. But, the twist obviously being that it would be Osha that would actually inevitably be this person that's going to take out Soul. Yeah, I think it's just kind of one of those things where once we actually see what happens, I suddenly realized, oh, it wasn't May that she saw, it was herself that she actually saw. She thought she saw May because I think she couldn't see herself committing that act. Do you know what I mean?
Right, in that moment.
In that moment, right? Because she didn't have all the pieces of information at the time. And I think, obviously, given what she learns and everything like that, it justifies why she would be the one to choke out Soul.
Yeah. I mean, back to the whole choking thing. I realized that was the initial question you asked there, Nate. I feel like the fact that it was a sensory depriving helmet and the fact that it's supposed to block these mental things, I can only assume that this was either herself or the Force kind of almost showing her what needs to be done later on, and like what it feels like to have, to die without a weapon being used type thing. And now she's able to recreate that feeling having gone through it type thing. That's what I think almost. It's weird because, again, that it's supposed to block mental intrusions and stuff like that. So it couldn't be anyone else doing that to her, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Darcy. I think she's choking herself in that moment. And
Yes.
I think you have to imagine this is the first time she was able to wield such power. I remember in episode 1, they very much made like a big deal of sort of showing like she's weak in the Force. And here we're seeing, she's cutting herself off from her senses. The helmet is doing its job, but she's never wielded this much power before. And with Qimir's eyes going black, she's tapping into what her mother's used to be able to do. And I just think, she's alone with her emotions. And I really like the poetry here where, her emotions are what we learn and what we sort of anticipated and knew that caused her to fail the Jedi and why she was sort of kicked out of being a Jedi. And here we see that it's the very thing that's bringing her to her most powerful state.
Yes.
And I just think that's really, really cool. And
Yeah.
I know that's kind of what they're going for, but it was just seeing it in that moment and seeing just how powerful she's ever been was really cool.
Yeah, especially when we start getting into like the hand-to-hand combat stuff and just how she kind of unleashes it all. But yeah, as soon as she snapped into that helmet, she kind of lost control. And I think it's the difference between someone who, obviously emotions play a huge part, but I also thought of it as like someone who hasn't really honed their skills and their capabilities. And Osha has obviously, been out of the game for a little while, and her emotions took over. Therefore, she's not able to necessarily navigate or, control them. And that's kind of what we're seeing unfold in this episode, is just that sort of what has happened and when she's bottled that emotion and it kind of gets to the top and it blows up. So I think, it's this whole episode is kind of an exercise in kind of understanding that from the perspective of Osha.
Totally. And like, I think this moment is also kind of capped off by a very Yoda-Luke conversation. I mean, whenever we look at the idea of Force visions and seeing that sort of thing, it brings you back to seeing Luke experiencing those visions. And even Qimir just saying, like, the way he said this, like, this is the future you saw, felt a little Yoda-coded to me. Which is kind of neat to sort of see those parallels and see how they're drawing in there. And, even to the point where, Luke tells Leia, like, I can save him. Right. And then we've got May saying, like, I can stop this. Like, the future is not set. So it's cool. It's nice to sort of see that. Again, I think for as much grief as I have given and will give the writers, even in some parts of this episode, there's a lot of stuff that honors classic Star Wars, and I think that's super cool.
Mm-hmm.
Let's keep going here. Soul sitting on the ground in front of May, she's strapped to the medical bed. He explains that they are hovering over Brendok, and that he's going to contact Master Vernestra so that he can finally prove his actions and the mistakes he made 16 years prior were justified, as it was in pursuit of understanding the vergence that can only be explained by being on Brendok, and now that both twins are still alive. May asks Soul why he blamed everything on her, and he says you started the fire. May says everyone died because of the 4 Jedi that invaded her home. Soul says it was right for him to intervene, and that his biggest regret is that he wasn't able to save both of them. He started to explain that May and Osha aren't twins. They aren't even sisters. But before he can finish his sentence, this is such a classic thing to happen to Soul, he gets stopped because May uses Pip, which she used to escape her restraints. She uses Pip to electrocute Soul. She runs to an escape ship, and she says, "See you in hell, Jedi." And then seals the door behind her. She plugs Pip into the console, pops on a flight helmet, and undocks from the larger ship. We then cut to the opening title. Darcy, let's start with you. I wanted to bring up that line here, "See you in hell, Jedi." You know what? I both liked and disliked that line being used, just because I was kind of confused. Do you think there is a hell in Star Wars?
I mean, they've alluded to something like that existing, but it's more that dark side, like when you're lost to the dark side, you're lost forever type thing, is what they've alluded to. To me, whenever I hear stuff like this, because it's happened before in comics and stuff like that, I think it's more, again, we're hearing this story from a long time ago that was in a language none of us speak. So this is just the translation.
It's the
Galactic
interpretation?
Basic is actually not what we're hearing. We're hearing the English interpretation
I like
of
that.
the Galactic Basic that the story originally was told in or whatever. So some words like, hell, and we've heard an F-bomb or two maybe, those exist, that's fine. But the other ones like the poodoo and all that stuff, it's like we've come to accept that as part of our language now as well. So that's why we're hearing it that way. So again, whenever I hear words like that, I don't think like, oh, that must exist there. It's more like, oh, that's just what the translation is.
And it sounds a little more badass than like, "See you in Poodoo, Jedi." Like, you know what I mean? Or like, "Thank Theric you," or something like that. No, I get that for sure. I did a little bit of digging, and I did try to find, like, have other Star Wars characters said hell before? And Han Solo actually says it in Empire Strikes Back, and he's like, "I'll see you in hell." And I'm like, that felt like maybe it was more Harrison Ford than it was Han Solo, but no, I think even Cal Kestis at some point in the game says like, "Oh, that thing's been through hell." And then I was looking up, apparently chaos is something that is taught on Naboo. And it's like through a legend of a story that was on Naboo about this place called Chaos, which is kind of an equivalent to hell. So, I guess if there's a hell, there can very much be. Do you think Justin? Do you think there's a Force heaven, or is that just being a Force ghost?
I don't know. If there's a hell, there has to be a heaven. It's just a belief system, right? At the end of the day, I don't think it's as definitive and defined as what we here in the real world have defined heaven and hell. I don't even think we have defined it entirely, but what religions define it as. So I think it's safe to exist. I think it's safe to assume that there is some sort of a belief in an afterlife, or the idea of a soul moving through to some sort of afterlife process, whether it be a heaven where you're appreciated, or hell where you're, castrated for your sins. You know what I mean? So,
right.
I think that it's just kind of like it's kind of like just an open language to understand what happens to our existence beyond life, right? So,
absolutely. And I'm wondering, this leaves me wondering where Soul's soul has ended up. I also want to bring up, like, as goofy as that joke was, how goofy did May look in that pilot's helmet? Like, is it just me?
Yeah, it
or
didn't
that
fit her
look
head properly.
Way bigger?
It did not fit well. I mean,
it looked too small for her head, right? It looked like, when you go to like try on one of the kids' helmets at like Galaxy's Edge, and
you mean
your
like
head is
I've
like
done
squished
many times?
Yeah, and like it looks like you're like Porkins putting on a helmet that's just not right to fit, and it's just like, and the glasses are like, the goggles just don't cover your eyes, and you're like, this just isn't right for me. It didn't look like it was sized.
Yeah, I don't get why they made that choice, having decided to go with that hairstyle for the character, which is
or just give her a bigger helmet,
voluminous.
Like,
Or why do you need a helmet? It's
true.
It's a sealed cockpit. Why wear a helmet?
Yeah, it seemed a little silly. I don't know.
She wasn't talking with anyone.
Yeah,
that's true.
It was cool to see the logo on it and how it sort of carries through, like with the original Jedi logo and all that stuff. But other than that, it felt dumb. Let's keep going here. Soul begins to chase her in another small ship. There's a lot of ships that come off of this one ship, at least two. And May guns it around Brendock towards its ringed moon, flying through the debris making up the ring around the moon. We see Basil That's my Basil impression. He's
I thought you were just
sniffing
breathing.
around. Oh yeah,
I thought you were just breathing. Sorry.
he's sniffing around and he sabotages the ship, causing Sol to slow down. May meanwhile crashes down onto the surface of Brendock. Quickly, why did Basil do this? Why did Basil sabotage the ship?
Why is Basil still around?
Yeah, well,
That's another
good
exactly.
question.
That's the bigger question to ask. But I think he really, I think he's not sensed, but he saw that he wasn't just trying to like bring her in. I think he was trying to shoot her down.
Yeah,
and I think maybe
But was he though? Because
I don't know.
like he
We
needs
don't.
her.
I guess, but like we don't know.
And she still ended up crashing.
It did.
Like
it did.
Like he caused her to crash
Yeah.
at the end of it. So
yeah, that is true.
It was
too.
just another sort of like wishy-washy character decision moment for me, which there's many in this show, and I just like Basil goes to fight May in the previous moment that we saw her with him, and he stomps on her foot
then
and
seemingly
all this
goes
stuff.
to save her in this.
But
one.
then he goes to save her, and I'm like, even if it was like he had a change of heart because he was listening in on their conversation from prior, at that point, still though,
it seemed like a sense of sabotage to like save them, but like to Darcy's point, they still crashed. So
yeah.
like it didn't really like they ended up landing okay, but like she crashed. She for sure crashed, right? So
Yeah.
But like they landed, Sol landed that big boat of a ship pretty easily on Brendock. So I don't know. I don't know if it was like I don't know if he was sabotaging to save her or sabotaging
Or to save himself?
No, to save them. Right? Because
Yeah.
maybe he thought or knew that whatever Sol was trying to do wasn't going to work out for either of them. So therefore he reacted.
Sure.
I don't know. But to
Yeah.
your point, like what we're talking about here is we're trying to fill in blanks for a decision for like this gopher who, just decided to make the decision to rip these
Right.
wires, right? Just
It's
for
the
the purpose
idea-
of the plot, right? So like
Exactly.
they need
It's
to
so
crash.
that plot can happen.
Exactly, right? So
Yeah.
and I don't know. So I wouldn't say that like it's not necessarily wishy-washy because you're right. There have been wishy-washy moments, and I see what you mean in the sense of like, he attacked May, and now he's like maybe trying to save her. But I think more or less this was like a plot device, and it's one of
Sure.
those examples from this show that sometimes things just happen, and we don't know why, other than just to move the plot forward. So,
Wow.
And if
I'm looking
anything,
forward to the season 2 episode, the bottle episode, where he explains everything in
and
his
he's
little
just sniffing away at you,
just
like
sniffing, and you get subtitles,
Yeah.
and we're like, wow, he actually knew it all along this entire time.
yeah, he's Palpatine, right?
Whoa, that would be huge. He just grows into Palpatine. All right, now on Coruscant, we see everyone's favorite Mog walks in and informs Vernestra that Senator Raincourt is there to see her. He shares how Senator Raincourt shares how he was surprised to hear that Vernestra was traveling through hyperspace, and says, "Is your stomach okay?" She's like, "My head's fine. It's actually my head." And he says he also heard that she was running a murder investigation without informing the Senate. She says without a larger threat, it's up to her discretion to inform the Senate, and he asks her how she knows there isn't a larger threat. She also lets it slip that there were multiple Jedi killed, but she quickly states that she's very close to apprehending the suspect. She dismisses him, and he shares that he thinks the Jedi are a massive system of unchecked power, posing as a religion, a delusional cult that claims to control the uncontrollable. He says there's only a matter of time before one of the Jedi snap in attempting to abstain from their emotions. And he says when you're looking up to heroes, you don't have to face what's right in front of you. And he's reported, he says that he's reported her lack of transparency to Chancellor Drellick and shares that he may invite her to a Senate tribunal. He says, "Good luck," but then in a very sort of belittling tone, he says, "No, wait.
What is it you say?
May the Force
be with you."
Be with you."
Oh, the sassiest look as he walks away.
was great.
too.
Yeah,
It was
basically like
fantastic.
go fuck yourself. Like honestly,
Yeah,
at the
go
end of the
force
day,
yourself.
yeah, go force yourself.
Um,
This guy
I
was
was-
great. He was fantastic.
I was so happy to see. His name is David Harewood. We've seen him in other things, but I wanted to ask you, Justin. We got to actually meet Senator Raincourt this season. We'd kind of predicted that maybe that would be more of a season 2 thing. What did you think about this conversation between him and Vern?
Oh, it was awesome. It was so
Yeah.
It was basically the truth bomb that audiences needed, that Vernestra needed, just to kind of capture what's going on, what the perception is. A
Mhm.
lot of what he says in this little short blip here is very much stuff that we've felt throughout, talking about the idea of unchecked power, and this show very much talking about what happens when the Jedi have too much power. What does that look like? This is what it looks like. And, to have a character kind of very much speak to, it feels like it's more to the audience in this moment than it is to just Vernestra, but I get it. Like, I understand that she needs to kind of be checked and to understand clearly what he's up to and why he's doing this. And yeah, it was such a short little blurb and such a short little moment, but it was probably one of the most impactful moments from this episode, in that it really does establish a sense of truth to what is going on, and it feels in some ways very meta in kind of establishing, and everything he said was absolutely true. It's just it was truth bomb on truth bomb on truth bomb. And even the idea of good luck and, oh, what is it you say? May the force be with you. That is essentially what may the force be with you. It's like, good luck, right? God praises you. You know what I mean? God bless you, and help you. Hopefully you succeed in your goal. But
I mean, it's cool to sort of see, bringing in that parallel of may the force be with you, growing up amongst within the Christian religion. And I've heard a lot more genuine God bless yous than non-genuine God bless yous, but those non-genuine God bless yous, God bless you, like, like there's such a it's interesting to sort of see how they're mirroring those two.
I think one of the most influential parts of the statement was the comment about the emotion, because if we think about what actually happens to Anakin Skywalker, it is a reflection
He's
of
the one that snaps.
Yeah, he's the one that snaps, and it's a reflection of the fact that he can't contain his emotions, and the idea that the Jedi pride themselves on their ability to suppress their emotions in favor of a sense of strength, as a sign of strength, and so on and so forth. Really, though, it is very much their weakness, and it can consume itself in different ways without them even knowing, because they've suppressed that. They've found ways to maneuver around it, which is why even Soul in this episode seems to be very freeing of like that sort of resolve, and kind of embracing some of his emotions even throughout this entire season. It seems like he is kind of embracing a little bit more of it up until the end. But yeah, I think that was probably one of the more insightful parts of the dialogue too, is it just felt like such a foreshadowing to what would inevitably be Anakin Skywalker becoming Darth Vader.
And I just like the fact that this is showing, again, how far the Jedi have come since the High Republic books, at least, where they were this beacon of hope in the galaxy, and they could do no wrong by the Chancellor, and they were really spreading out as far as they could go to find all walks of life and help as much as they could. And then after they were attacked, they almost seem to have retreated and become this military thing that they're talking about. And it's again cool to see what was whispers in the politics of the books have become like a full-fledged political party at this point, where someone is running on the basis that they have too much power. And again, this is all reactive to the fact that they were prepared to be attacked by something, and now they've gone too far in the fact that when something is attacking them from within, they're too blind to see it. So it's really cool to see how far the Jedi have come and how far they'll go again, because it's a smack dab between the two eras of Jedi that we've kind of really got to explore, really. And it's cool.
And we've seen Star Wars, showcase how, if you don't listen to your past, you're the phrase, you're doomed to repeat the mistakes or whatever it is, right? Like, I think the sort of seeing this and seeing how it will inevitably lead to what you're talking about, Darcy, and also, there's lines where Yoda very much says, like, we'll have more enemies. Like, he's basically saying the same thing that Vernestra was saying at the beginning of this show, of like, if this gets out, we'll have more enemies than just the Sith alone. And yeah, I think it's cool. I think this sequence is so dynamic, and I really enjoyed David Harewood in this show and in this moment. I hope if we get a season 2 that we do get more of him. I think this is this is some of the best writing in this show, along with Qimir's dialogue in episode 5. Like, this is the kind of writing. This felt like they took a note out of Andor's books and took some of that political thriller mentality and imbued it in this show. And honestly, I really wish that this was something that we had gotten throughout the season, that this was something that maybe started a few more episodes back, at least to help bolster the Vernestra side of the story, because I think we get such a small amount from her, and it seems very devious what she's doing. Whereas I think getting a little bit more of a clearer understanding of her motivations through performances like this and through writing like this, I think would have added a lot to the series.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think that this is one of many little, like, building blocks for a season 2. And I think the mystery around Vernestra is definitely part of that, and the way it kind of adds up. And I think that that's kind of why they were very reserved with this whole thing. We only heard whispers of what was happening, and now to see it here in the finale, it is definitely something that if a season 2 gets announced, it will definitely be a part of that story. But I think you're right. I think it is like some of the best writing from this show. It's and if anything it takes from Andor isn't necessarily the political thriller, it's the honesty. It's the sense of truth that's in this writing that feels so like it takes you back, right? There's no fluff. It's direct. It's to the point, and it actually is very, very reflective of the Jedi. And I think that's sort of the beat from Andor that it takes, because overall the thriller political vibe of this, there's obviously politics that's always littered through Star Wars, and maybe this is just the only instance that we've really kind of gotten to see politics outside of what this is, like this Jedi Order at this point in time in the High Republic era. So it is going to be interesting to see if in season 2 we do explore more of the politics. We do see more of Coruscant outside of the Jedi Temple, because that's all we saw, right? Like, we only anytime we were at Coruscant, it was to be at the Jedi Temple. So now hopefully, now that there's new things that are being sort of seeded for a season 2, and if there is a season 2 that is announced, that can be explored more, that political side.
Yeah, you can catch me hanging with my Coruscant boys. That'll be a
little shorts and
little short shorts. Drinking my blue milk
Mom,
milkshakes.
I want my blue milk.
It'll be great. It'll be fantastic. We're buying vintage action figures. Back on the beach on Brendock, we see Osha and Qimir. Well, first we see those little cute little, what are they called? Skurras? Those little cute little gray animals. But then we see Osha and Qimir walking across the jetty, is what the audio description calls it, the rock formation. And they're walking towards the ship. He offers her one more time to train her, asking her if she'd ever consider it. She says no, and then he's like, okay, last chance. And she still denies him, saying she's not her sister. And he's like, you're right. May made that deal without even thinking about it. With a view from a nearby cave entrance, here we go. We watch as their ship takes off. A spindly hand reaches out and clutches the rock wall. From the shadows, we see a cloaked figure with a ghastly elongated head, where he leans partially into view and peers out through orange eyes. Darcy, we got it. We got him. He's here, or at least I think it's him. What did you think of the reveal? Finally, live action, Darth Plagueis the Wise.
Why is he so decrepit? Like, that's all I feel like. He's not an imposing Sith Lord at this point.
Younger at this point, maybe too, right?
Something. I'm wondering, is he there? Does Qimir know he's there? Is he there as Qimir's servant? Does he overthrow him? What the hell? What's going on here? Why is he just?
That's a bajillion
like, ooh,
questions.
I'm here. Never mind. Like,
yeah.
Well, it's a weird way to get him.
Well, and if you notice where he was standing, it was through the entrance that we've already seen from episode 6, and obviously in this episode as they exit to leave his little cave hut. So yeah, is he hiding there? Is he Qimir's master, or is he using Qimir to bring these twins to him? is Qimir more or less sort of a projection or something that Plagueis is wielding? And you're right, he is decrepit. Maybe he's badly injured. Maybe there's something that's wrong with him, and he needs this sense of Virgins force using, extending life capability that he needs to acquire from them. And maybe that's why, because I still believe that there is some significance as to why Qimir sought out May. Like, I don't think it just happened by chance. I think that there was something that tipped him off about her and the story around what happened to her, where she comes from. I think there's a lot that he knows, that Qimir knows, and if that is not by extension from Plagueis, or that Plagueis knows, and why Qimir is doing this, there are a lot of questions. I do think it's really strange that the biggest reveal happens within the first 15 minutes of this episode. You know what I mean? And I'm not to say that all these really big reveals should happen at the end. There's something refreshing about maybe putting it there, but I think it just raises a lot more questions, and it feels like it's fan service without real intention to it. So, it's like, oh, he's there, but that's all you're going to see. So I'm glad he is there. I will say this. I'm glad that we're establishing at least some connective tissue here, but I want more. And if anything, again, if we don't get a season 2 from The Acolyte, hopefully they do something with Plagueis, because even just that is enough of an Easter egg. But I'm sure fanboys were, the fans that were like, oh, what are they going to do? And we're probably a little more happy at the end of this, I imagine. I don't know. Maybe they weren't.
Nothing can make those fanboys a little
just
more
a bunch
happy.
of Coruscant boys.
No, my Coruscant boys, we're ride or died. We're not those guys. Trust me.
I don't know. Coruscant seems like a bunch of people who would just hop on the nearest type train. Type thing.
No, we're all Disney shows.
No, they're all Mogs, man. They're all Mogs.
Yeah. No, but I think if there's a documentary that comes out that says, this was the plan all along, fine. It kind of felt like, trust me, I jumped at first. I'm like, yeah, we got him. Okay, he's here. But then having him not return later in the episode, it sort of dawned on me like, was that something that maybe they just sort of added in at a later time? And to your point, Justin, to kind of appease the fans. I do want to say, though, I loved how Michael Abels used some sort of semblance of music from Revenge of the Sith, from Plagueis' story, where he tells him about, where Palpatine tells Anakin at the Opera House. But, the orange eyes, the design I wasn't sure of at first, because I've seen multiple pictures of Plagueis.
Yeah.
Darcy, correct me if I'm wrong. Like, there's one picture I've seen where he's got a big schnoz, he's got a huge nose, and then another one on the cover of the Plagueis novel by James Luceno, where he looks much more like this version of Plagueis.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I'm more aware of the Luceno cover, because that is the most recent thing I've read about Plagueis.
That's probably what they're taking
and
from.
That is the one that I take as canon, because the other one I believe is a picture from the Legends era of storytelling.
Yeah, it's more of a depiction of what he would look like, rather than
Yes.
him actually like
Theories and stuff like that,
Yeah.
not actual like depiction.
Exactly.
So, whereas the Luceno is again the story of him. So
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So I don't know. It feels like it's cool. Like, again, it's really cool that they're leaning into it, but yeah, like I don't know if there's enough justification. Like, I think something along the lines, and I think this is how we kind of all envisioned it, was that, there might be a moment when Qimir is by himself, and then he's either confronted by Plagueis, or we hear Plagueis' voice and we kind of see that figure, and there's a bit more of an interaction and an understanding of, again, like you said, Nate, like motives and intention, which seems to be so absent in some of these characters. At least understanding a little bit more about, is there a relationship? Because right now we don't know. Is he just lurking in this cave? Like, or it seems like he might have some sort of a relationship with Qimir if he's in his like house.
yeah, I mean, I'm just sitting here. I just realized I'm thinking back to Qimir and May's conversation when they first land on Kofar. Am I getting that
Yep.
right?
The jungle?
Yeah. Jungle, yeah. When they land, he talks about how his master likes to collect people. You know how he is. Like, maybe he is just doing this for his master and knows that he might be, bringing in his successor as his master's apprentice or something like that. I don't know. I feel like Qimir knows something knows about the Virgins and how important May and Osha are because of his connection to Vernestra, and how probably again if Soul was so close to Vernestra, he was probably trying to convince her that there was a virgin. She said, "You don't have enough info. Don't talk about this type thing." So maybe there's something there that led him to tell Plagueis about the virgins, and that's why Plagueis now has an interest in them so many years later. I don't know. There again, a lot of questions raised from such a short little snippet.
Yeah, I like that, but I also think too, like I like Justin. I kind of dig the idea, because I even thought too, seeing Qimir disappear so many times into nothingness,
Yeah.
the idea that he is a force projection is really cool. Now, I'm not sure exactly how the physics work with force projections, given that normally when we've seen force projections in the past, they can't touch or be touched, and clearly, we see Qimir holding hands and touching shoulders and things like that.
Snapping neck.
Snapping neck, exactly right. Maybe that's the biggest example. But I think, as far as Plagueis is concerned, if they are separate characters, to him and Qimir, I do think that I think Chimir's aware of him, but not that Plagueis is on the planet. I don't think he knows that he's there. I think Plagueis is watching in secret, and he's watching his apprentice find a new apprentice. There's a moment very subtly, and maybe it's just because like bad guy be bad guy, so he looked bad, but his eyebrow like furrows, and to me that sort of made me think like, oh, he's witnessing the as the rule of two goes, he's witnessing his apprentice find a new apprentice so that he can rise up and she can kill Plagueis. Like that's kind of what I'm seeing happen here. And not that he'd be surprised by it, but he's obviously maybe disappointed, hence his furrowed brow.
Maybe I feel like too, though, I'm like, yeah, like obviously, yeah, the force projection mentality definitely doesn't work, but I think maybe Chimir's hiding something, and I think that Osha and May being a part of this witch coven is super important. If they are if they are virgins, they've been created out using the force. That's of immense value, obviously, to Plagueis and what he would inevitably try to achieve, and that would then get passed down to someone like Palpatine. And like it's what's interesting about it too is that Plagueis, like you said, Nate, like Plagueis looks like he's kind of hurt and injured, or he's just like he's kind of disheveled. So it's kind of like almost maybe this has a purpose for him, in which can give him back his strength, which is why he's kind of getting Qimir to kind of lead this, because he can't push that. So maybe there is something that is there.
To your point, we do have Qimir in episode 6 saying he's older than she thinks, or something along those lines. We talked about how he's maybe much older. To your point, maybe this is like a life sustaining system that him and Plagueis have. Like, okay, you bring me these ones now, and I'll re-up and gain some sexy muscles, and then next time you do it, and then you know what I mean. Like, maybe to your point, maybe there's something a little more nefarious.
I wonder if it's
yeah.
not necessarily the rule of two with Qimir and Plagueis. That's what I'm saying. I'm wondering if maybe they are Sith trained to a certain degree. Because we obviously know as we move through that there is a relationship between Qimir and another Jedi. So, there obviously is some sort of realism to the character of who Qimir is, and his identity, and he has been around for a while. I think that's another soft confirmation in this show, but maybe it's not necessarily the rule of two. Maybe there's something else. Maybe there's a companionship, a sense of friendship, of something like that, where he is trying to help Plagueis, regain some strength because of maybe an injury or something that's happened, because he didn't look right. He looked like he was injured or something.
For sure. Maybe it's the rule of one, the rule of two, the rule of many. Let's keep going here. We see Soul land and turn on his transponder. Vernestra speaking with presumably a high Jedi Council member looking to speak with a very busy someone who we'll talk about later. And then Mog telling Vern that they've found out Soul is on Brendok. Qimir and Osha approach Brendok as Soul sees them and then continues his search. He stares at the spot where he killed Anastasia. Then we cut back to Qimir and Osha. Osha tells Qimir unless he wants to climb that the fortress, the elevator is the only way to get in. He asks her if she's sure, and then he pulls a Batman and disappears. With both sisters, Qimir and Soul, all now in the fortress, we finally see the rematch that we've been waiting for between Soul and Qimir. Qimir thanks Soul for leading him to her and says, "We make a great team." They enter into combat in an incredible saber battle that includes Qimir dual-wielding some fantastic slow-motion moments and Soul using the Force to push both Qimir and his Force-thrown blades out of the way. Then we cut to Osha and May in their childhood room, now charred and burned. And they try to explain their points of view to each other. Osha tells May that she could never learn to calm her negative emotions, and that's why she never became a Jedi. And May tries to convince her sister that she's been lied to and that Soul killed their mother. Osha slide tackles into May, and then the two start sparring off, eventually leading to a perfectly timed kick where their legs crossed, and we get a jump cut to two sabers clashing in the courtyard. Soul and Qimir continue to duel until they see a Jedi ship flying by the fortress. They resume, and eventually Soul makes one swift blow, cutting off the blade of Qimir's saber. So let's pause here and talk about both of these fights. What did you guys think of this final battle between the two masters and the twins?
You said jump cut. It's actually a match cut. So just want to correct you.
There you go.
It's a match
Push your glasses up for me. Make sure they're up nice and high. There you go.
So yeah, it was a fantastic match cut.
Yeah.
With the legs crossing just like the sabers. I think again, like this is the highlight of the show. Attention to fight choreography, something that feels fresh and different. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon moment. Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm all here for it. The ability of blending, hand-to-hand combat with lightsaber duel that feels more like samurai than it does lightsaber duel. There's an elegance to it. There's a precision to it. Qimir or Manny Jacinto, whoever's behind the mask that's wielding that saber, knocked it out of the park. And along with Lee Jung-jae, such a beauty. And I love that they use the classic blue and red. Seeing those colors within the dark tunnels that just kind of illuminate. It just felt so, reminiscent of classic Star Wars with Luke and Vader and Cloud City. This is the highlight of the episode. You could say this is the highlight of the show. Is just this attention to choreography and just the way it's done. And man, like when he slices that blade at the end, and I was like, did he just kill him? Because I thought it was like a samurai ending, like almost
it reminded me a lot of the
Obi-Wan and Maul, right?
And Maul
where it was
fight.
like the strike, and like I was like, did he just kill him? And then I just saw the saber. I'm like, oh, thank God. I thought we lost. I thought we lost Manny in this, but I was happy that we didn't. But yeah. Fantastic stuff. Like I this will go down as some of the best fight choreography in a Star Wars show, and as an episode, it'll definitely sit as being one of the single best for that.
Mm-hmm. I think my favorite part about the May and Osha fight is the fact that they literally do the exact same moves the entire time.
Yeah.
Like they are fighting themselves because they are one person, and it's just they fight the exact same way.
Yeah.
It was so cool to show that before being told that, basically. Like we've gotten hints throughout the show, and then this fight scene just sums it up to a T perfectly, where they are so similar that they cannot get a land blow on each other, because while they're attacking, they're also defending. And it's such a cool way to display that relationship. And then the Qimir Soul fight is incredible stuff. That him turning back 3 different things at once, showing his power off, it was really cool. Unfortunately, it doesn't end well for him, but really, really awesome fight.
Yeah, I think, and huge shout out to the costume design here as well. I think sticking May in that lighter outfit and then Osha in the darker outfit and having that sort of yin-yang mentality, even just with the choreography, like you're saying, Darcy, like they're matching, they're staying in the same part of the frame. Seeing Osha tapping into her dark side and wearing the darker clothes is just giving those Luke Skywalker Return of the Jedi vibes, and that's so cool. And I think, you know, I mentioned during our watch club for episode 5 how frustrating it was when they kept cutting away from these fights that we've been waiting to see. And in this moment when they cut away to go to May and Osha, I was like, I felt that same frustration. And then as soon as we got that match cut, I was like, no, okay, that was worth it. That right there was worth it because it was one of the coolest sequences.
But that's how you weave two fights together.
Sure.
And you also, you have the depiction, like you said, two masters, two apprentices, you know, sisters, and you know, what perceivably could be Jedi brothers, you know, because they were both at one point Jedi. It's like you have a lot of like symmetry that's working for you in these two fights that if you don't find the opportunity to kind of cross them and mix them, it just feels like a missed opportunity. But yeah, like you call out the visual representation of May in the white and Osha in the black. You know, obviously Osha didn't have anything else other than what was at this bloody, you know, at the stranger's place. So I'm sure everything he has is in black. So that's probably works.
Well, it's probably all May stuff.
Yeah, that's
May's
probably very
clothing,
true. Yeah. But so like at the end of the day, though, what was really interesting is that even for myself, I had to check myself and remember who was who because of the fact that we had, you know, there has been such a flip flop here, right? What you know, in the process or the journey of both of these characters. So I actually really liked that because like as a visual nod, it does really capture how May has transitioned to that light side while Osha's obviously found her strength in her emotions, and that is sort of becoming her anchor, right? In a lot of ways, we're seeing that in a lot of that, and the way she just kind of explodes in this fight,
like her yells.
Her yells, yeah, and like even Osha's like, I mean, even May was just looking at her like, "Geez, calm down.
Who are you?"
Yeah, exactly. Like where's all this rage coming from, right?
Yeah.
So
I you know, we love a good hallway fight as well. Like having Qimir and
on the bridge there,
and Soul starting on that hallway and then onto the bridge, and it's giving Revenge of the Sith. And I think the way that they float down, you know,
Crouching
very similar
Tiger,
to
man.
Sure, but also to, you know, reference with Indara's movement in the first episode of the show, the slow motion double kick moment where Soul does that double kick into Chimir's chest was so cool. And I think even just the line of Soul saying, "I will destroy you if I must," it's classic samurai and it's classic Star Wars all rolled into one line, and they knew what they were doing with this sequence. And yeah, I think it is definitely the highlight of this episode, and it's up there with those combat moments from episode 5. Let's keep going here. Qimir removes his helmet, and Soul holds his blue blade to his throat. May disengages, she comes out of nowhere, and disengages Soul's weapon and begins to disarm him. She does so successfully. She throws the saber away, causing it to chip, and exposes the crystal inside. Qimir tells her to strike Soul down, and her journey will be complete. She says no, and that she wants him to pay for his crimes. He says he wanted to protect both of them. He explains that their mother created her and her sister's lives. She eventually gets him to admit that he killed their mother, and Osha, while holding the chipped saber, softly asks, "Is that true?" Soul turns and lays eyes on her despairingly. He continues to try and explain his side of the story, and Osha asks him to stop talking. He continues to explain that he did everything because Then he begins to choke. Osha, while holding his saber in one of her hands, holds out her other hand while watching Soul as his life is drained from his body. A close-up of Soul's broken saber shows as the kyber crystal inside begins to bleed. Soul, with his last breath, reassures her that it's okay. Osha closes her fingers into a tight grip, and Soul falls to the ground, dead. May looks on in disbelief. Qimir steadily reaches out to put his hand on Osha, and then she quickly stands up, lashes out at him, igniting Soul's damage saber, and we see the blade slowly go from blue to red. Qimir looks at the blade intrigued, and May and Osha are seemingly stunned by what just happened. So a lot to unpack here. Darcy, what did you think of Soul's death and the first live-action view of Kyber Crystal bleeding?
Well, I mean, I really grew to like the character of Soul over the course of this series. While there was a lot of flaws with the story writing and how they handled his character, he was one of the more intriguing parts. So it was disappointing to see him end this way, but knowing what it's setting up, or like the potential for what it's setting up, leads to be really cool. And I really hope that we do get a season 2 so that we can explore some of what his death will mean and the ramifications of this going forward, with what the cover up and everything that comes to follow. So yeah, I mean, it sucked, but also it was really cool to see. And again, that the Kyber Crystal bleeding to red to blue, that better be a Legacy lightsaber edition.
Bro, I literally wrote down that they need to have a Soul / Osha's lightsaber and have it as an option to change the blade color, like, and it does the animation. Dude, come on.
I want it.
Those sabers are thick enough that it wouldn't be hard for them just to replicate that.
I feel like they were doing it just so that makes it easier to sell those Legacy lightsabers. Yeah. It's like there's 1-to-1 on screen now.
Please make it a thing.
Yeah. I I didn't know about the significance of the Kyber Crystal bleeding until after I read about it. I know it's only been it's been featured in like a couple comics, and I think one of them was actually with Kylo, if I'm not mistaken, right? From what I was saying. So to see that in live action, and to also see it as sort of a visual manifestation of what is happening to Osha, right? Like that transition from what was, good intentions to now being overtaken by her emotions and anger in a moment, and, which leads to her choking out Soul. It's pretty powerful stuff. Yeah. In just sort of in a visual storytelling way, right? Like it's not what it says is really interesting. And the fact that, as I was mentioning before, Soul seems to have throughout this show kind of leaning into his emotions a little bit more, you see him getting frustrated, you see him getting a little annoyed, you know what I mean, with the way things were being handled off the top, and getting scared, and having care and for Osha, and the fact that he was about to say, because I love you. I don't know of a Jedi that's actually said that, or you know what I mean, and well, he never did actually say it, but the fact that we were going to get to that point where he was going to kind of confess his love for her. Obviously, it's not a romantic thing. It's no,
but it's in the way.
It's a father, daughter, or brother. Yeah, it's the same way. I loved you, Anakin. I loved you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that is another example of someone expressing love, but maybe not in necessarily this traditional way of obviously male and female in a Jedi. I don't know, but yeah, this is really interesting in that he is kind of succumbing to his emotions, his feelings, and right in a moment when everything's being taken away from him, from her force choking him. And I guess this is what they meant by killing without a weapon.
There we go. We figured it out.
But that's what, but it was always there. Like it was literally always there. So it's like, so basically this is like the first force choke, maybe.
I guess so, or it's because again, maybe it all takes is how you have to experience it to be able to do it type thing, and then once you've done it, you can teach it, or I don't know. Like it's really cool to see that that's the way they went with this, because it was under our noses the entire time, and none of us really thought of it, despite being the Star Wars uber nerds that we are. We're like, oh, the Sith can force choke. That's one of their go-to moves. And
to be completely honest, no one else. I never saw it as much as I was online reading stuff.
No one
ever went there.
So it was really cool that was we've come full circle, and it makes total sense. Like it's not like we're all going, oh, why didn't I think of that type thing?
Exactly.
It was so cool.
Yeah. And I think it also it adds to that extra sting in reminding us how Soul would get the two of them confused. The fact that Osha herself sort of saw in that moment and thought it was May, and I think her saying stop talking and then force choking him to death. like you're saying, she doesn't have to use her hands. It shows how powerful she really is and how powerful her emotions can make her. And, there's a reason that Anakin became so powerful, right? And again, going back to the old meme of that documentary of George Lucas, it's like poetry. They rhyme. We have, Anakin lost his mother. And so, we see how it turned out for the Tuscans, and now we also see how it turns out for Sol. And I think even to the point of because I loved you, that's also like we were sort of joking about earlier. It's like, I loved you, Anakin. You were my brother, Anakin. And then even to the point where Sol says it's okay, to me, that's reminiscent of I have failed you. And it's just one of those things where he's allowing her to almost like he's taking on that punishment and just saying it's okay for what you're about to do. Massive shout out, as we've been doing throughout this entire series, to the performance by Lee Jung-jae here, because it is absolutely he's the best part of this show. And I just thought he did such a good job throughout this sequence, just to sort of even just the way that he was sort of almost rambling before, and then sort of as soon as she just gets him down to his last breath, he very finitely says it's okay. And I don't know, I thought he did an excellent job.
Yeah, he very much, it almost seems like he was saying to her, like, I know why you're going to do this, right? And I think it kind of comes back to Torben and why Torben felt the way he did to kind of take his own life. I think he felt guilty for the events that happened that night at Brendock, and the fact that like she had her hand next to her, like in the motion of a choke, and then she raised it up, and then I was just like, oh, okay, that's how you could do that. Like it was really well done, because at first I was like, who's doing it? Who's doing it?
Plague is there, right?
Yeah, right. Like who's doing this? Or is it Vernestra? I thought maybe she kind of like creeped in, right, and was like ready to take him out. But yeah, this with Lee Jung-jae and Sol, what a standout character in terms of like just going from being super cool to being super flawed. And I think as an audience, like you said, Darcy, it's like you appreciate his character, you appreciate his acting. Maybe there could have been a redemption for him, but I think this was the only redemption that made sense for him, because he's been carrying this for so long, and I think that's why he just got to this point of, it's okay, it's okay, I'm done, right?
Yeah.
So
okay, let's keep going here. Vernestra and the other Jedi exit the ship, and Vernestra pauses and closes her eyes. Back at the fortress, Qimir quickly turns his head, sensing her arrival. Vern opens her eyes quickly and gasps, saying, "You." Qimir rushes to put his cortosis helmet back on, and we see Vern say in a gasped voice, You're alive." She then calms herself, telling the other Jedi she knows where they are. Basil scurries in, and Mog greets him. What a relief. And finally, to see both these incredible characters on screen at the same time. Then Osha looks to see Qimir has yet again disappeared, and May asks her to come with her as she knows a way out. We see Vernestra and the other Jedi make their way into the fortress. We see how May got out 16 years ago, climbing down the chasm into a core. Well, she says she was sucked into a core tunnel in the generator annex. Vernestra and the other Jedi enter the courtyard to see Sol's lifeless body. She uses the Force to sense all the events we saw in the previous flashback episode. Qimir watches her whisper in Sol's ears from the distance. She looks up in a hurry towards his position, but again, he Batmans out of there. Darcy, what did you think about the confirmation that Qimir and Vern had a past, and the explanation of how May survived 16 years ago after Sol let her fall?
Well, the confirmation of the connection between the two characters finally makes it explains why she seems so shady this whole season, is because of the connection to this Sith-like person or whatever. And I hope we get a season 2, because this is now the story I'm invested in, and I want to know more about, because obviously he left for a reason. She pushed him away. I don't know what happened, but there's something there that needs to be explored. And then What was the second half of your question? I just completely blanked on
Yeah,
it.
what did you
Wow.
think of May's escape? Like that, how we found out how she escaped.
Very much like Luke falling through Cloud City type thing, getting sucked into one of those ports.
Yeah,
So
just so
I
like
am
it's felt watching it back then though. It was like, how he's so lucky he just landed right there.
The Force
Like,
pulled him
yeah.
through. The Force
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll go
pulled
with
him
that.
through.
and the Force
sucked him
saved
through.
May.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yep.
The Force
For
of
a
physics,
reason.
of course,
Yeah.
is what I'm talking about.
The Force. That's not how the Force works. Sorry, go ahead.
But yeah, just classic Star Wars reference there. And while it does seem cheesy and everything like that, it's the whole thing was on fire. Who knows what exhaust was venting at
Sure.
what time or whatever. So it's completely fine by me. I'm glad we kind of actually got that answer because that was something I never thought we would see.
Yeah.
Was how she got out of there, but it's cool. So I'm on board with it. I especially like where it ends up. Again, full circle. So
Yeah, the whole May thing, it's like, sure, we just need to answer to that question. We got it.
Mhm.
As Darcy said, I couldn't help but think of Cloud City with Luke and just the sort of guidance right into the
It's
into
like
the
he's
right
like
port.
on like a slide, like a
For
kid
sure,
slide.
yeah. Like he,
Yeah.
yeah. And so that's what I thought. When I imagined it. But no, the most interesting part of this is obviously the confirmation, the sort of theories that we had. Venestra's been acting really shady this entire season. Like she's familiar with cover-ups, and it's clear that she is familiar with cover-ups, with hiding stuff, and especially as we get to the end of this episode. But even just this slight revelation of she knows who Qimir is. She, we get the confirmation it was a former pupil of hers. But this is like, as Darcy said, this is season 2. This is the investment that I have. I think this is a great way to seed plant this story, even if we don't actually get it. Like if they don't renew this show, I think that they're at least leaving it on the table to say that there's something interesting about them, and who knows how that could be explored.
And who's to
Right?
say it couldn't be in a High Republic book?
That's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
it definitely could be something that's a comic or that's a book if they don't necessarily move forward with the show. So I think that that's really cool. Like either way, if the show gets renewed or not, I think the story has a place to be told. But it also, in my opinion, it also does sort of confirm that that Qimir is much older, I think, than the rest of them. Like he looks young, but I think he's far older. Especially given the remarks that he made in episode 6, where it was a long time ago,
In a galaxy.
in a galaxy
Far,
far away.
Yeah.
So I think that this, and the fact that he would be aligned with, Vernestra, who's I think is like over 100 years old at this point. There's something there. So I want to know more. Manny Jacinto was fantastic in this show, and even in these moments that we got in the moments of this episode, he was unbelievable. So I'm like all for wanting to see a series where they can explore this story and kind of go further, as Darcy said, with Vernestra and kind of figuring out like this cover up and everything.
Now, Darcy, correct me if I'm wrong, but the books cover Vernestra's story up until she becomes a knight. Is that correct?
It's more her Padawan
More.
years, yeah.
Okay, so my thought here is, we go back to the whip marks on his back, and I think either she was pushing him too hard during training, or that could have been the result of eventually when he did betray her. Maybe that's self-defense, right? And I think, knowing that he was a pupil, it makes it super interesting. You brought up the point, Justin, that he is much older. I think it's very possible that he could have maybe been not only Vern's first apprentice, but her first really, really big mistake. And I dig that idea. I dig that concept that this is someone that she sees as something she needs to keep hidden. And obviously we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Absolutely.
But
yeah.
yeah. But okay, let's keep going here. We see the Jedi searching with Basil through the forest. Eventually, May and Osha reach the Bunta tree. I always want to say, like in the pod raid, like Bunta, the Bunta tree. May explains how she sat there and waited for Osha to waited for Osha, and Osha apologizes to her, saying, "Sorry, I didn't believe you." And May says she's sorry that she started the fire, and the two comfort each other by recanting their childhood poem. Qimir approaches them and says, if I can find you, the Jedi certainly can. And Osha continues to put her faith in the Jedi. Qimir and May explain to Osha that when the Jedi find out just how powerful she is, she'll meet the same fate as her mother. Osha asks May what to do, and May asks her, she sort of says, like, what do you want to do? And Osha asks the stranger to let her sister go and that she'll train with him. May says that the Jedi will use her to find them, and May agrees to have her memory wiped by the stranger, and the two sisters embrace, saying goodbye. Osha tells May she'll find her, and the two begin to recant their childhood poem. But as they get further into it, May is unable to finish her sentences. The Jedi find May sitting under the tree, and they arrest her as she looks at them dumbfounded, asking what she did. What did you guys think of the decision to erase May's memory?
I really feel like, May was dumbfounded because Mog's a Jedi. Like, that probably is what threw her off.
She saw Mog and was like,
it was like, you're a Jedi.
Hold on a second.
You're arresting me? The most flimsy boy here?
Sure.
Anyways, you know what? Like, this, I first I didn't know how I felt about it. I thought it was a little too convenient to kind of like, let's just do the, switcheroo. But then I was reminded that, we did watch a fantastic Marvel movie, which also featured a memory wiping ending, which was No Way Home. And it kind of worked. Mm-hmm. So, I think here I don't know. I'm kind of 50-50 with it. I sort of feel like I'm okay with it, but at the other time, and I feel like it's super convenient as a plot device to kind of move the story forward. I am obviously very interested with the deal that Osha struck up with, Qimir, and now that she will become his apprentice. That's super, super interesting. And, again, another building block or seed planted for a future season 2 or a future story to be told in any fashion. But yeah, I thought this part was just a little convenient. I don't know.
Darcy, what do you think? Because I might go off on a bit of a tangent, so I'll get you to go first.
I mean, it makes sense. Again, we've seen that Qimir is clearly very skilled in the mental aspect of the Force. He's never Force choked someone. That's why he was shocked when he saw it for the first time. But we've seen he's got these defenses against mental fortitude, and clearly Vernestra is also skilled in psychometry and potentially all these mental mind
there
tricks.
You go.
So
there you go.
It's really cool to see that power exerted and how far he can wield it, to the point where he can completely erase his presence from anyone he meets if he needs to. So that kind of explains how the Sith have stayed hidden for so long. Is even if they are encountered, if they have the time to wipe the mind, then it's easy enough for them to do, just like a Jedi doing a mind trick, basically. So
he probably could have done that in episode 5 rather than just leaving a murder spree, but wouldn't have been an interesting episode if he did do that.
No, yeah, we'd probably have some problems with that, but at the same time, it was really cool to see. And he wanted to vent some anger and stuff like that. He is a Sith. His emotions do need to be let out sometimes.
Oh, yeah. Darcy, I love the connection between Qimir and Vernestra's mind force powers, and how maybe that was something that he took from his old master. I really dig that. I do not at all enjoy the idea that the only thing that they could do in this moment was to erase May's memory, because I just don't understand the reason that she had to stay back. Like, I've seen arguments online of people being like, the ship only has two compartments for pilots, and it's like, bro, come on, you could absolutely squeeze another twin into one of those compartments. That's not a problem.
I don't think that she could have just gotten away, though. Like,
or
they could have just divided.
It just felt to me. It's just like, I don't know. No one, especially now that Soul is dead, no one knows where that unknown planet is, right? And it felt, to your point, Justin, like a plot device. It felt disingenuous. May finally has her sister back. Finally, they're on the same, point of understanding each other, and then just immediately out of the blue, they're okay with losing each other all over again. And was Qimir going to kill May if that wasn't the deal that was struck? It certainly didn't seem like that. Earlier in the episode, he says, strike Soul down, you'll complete your training. And so, like, you know,
He was disarmed at that point. So,
right.
I mean,
But I'm just saying, like, I don't know. She didn't. It's not like she wanted freedom, right, and wanted to be away from her sister. Like, it's not like she you know, I just. It's upsetting because, again, it just sort of, even if you were to argue the rule of two thing, Qimir doesn't seem like he's really into rules anyways, and it just felt like a strange decision and really goes against the logic of their character motivation, like this show has been doing, just so that it can have that potential of more storytelling. And I get it. It sets up an intriguing season 2, but I found it way too inauthentic.
To me, I think what it boils down to is the fact that they were very close to being discovered, and if they all ran away, the Jedi would chase them until they find them.
And Qimir would take them all out.
Yes, but he would also
It's just
face Vernestra again. He's
Sure.
he's afraid of his past master. That is the fear why he's running, obviously.
Sure.
Because she
That's
is
why he got
very
the fuck
strong
out
in
of
the
there so
Force.
quickly.
And
Like, he just disappeared
exactly.
like
He
Batman.
has a history
Yeah.
with Vern that he does not want to go into at this point in time. And again, with Basil on them, if they ran, they would be chased until they got to their ship, which probably wouldn't give them enough time.
Because he's got
to
both
get
of their
away at
scents
that
now,
point.
right? Like, he's got
And he
May
was
and
right on
Ursula,
them. So
yeah.
as soon as he gets led, they need to leave someone behind as a decoy almost. Again, that should have been explained, but that's the only way I could boil it down to, because it's the only thing that makes sense.
Well, yeah, and also you do bring up a good point. The ship would only support is a 2-person pilot ship. They can't necessarily.
Yes, and at that time, it's very popular. They had only 2-person ships. Jedi Vectors only held 2 people.
Right.
It was a known thing. 2 is a very common occupancy number.
So she's there. How is she going to get off? I guess she would have to steal Soul Ship.
Or
but they're
just
gonna probably
sit on someone's lap, Justin. It's not. It's the.
No, I don't think sitting on someone's lap is actually a very safe method of flight travel.
All right, Maude.
yes, and I think it boils down to life support too.
Sure.
The ship may only be designed to
Look, we
support
don't
the life
we
of
don't need to
2
get
people.
into the thing. I think
Yeah.
I think the fact that you think that they could just just sit in the back. Like,
Sure.
okay, I'm gonna try to cram you into one of those pods.
Why
like
not?
with me? No fucking way. I feel like at the
Basil was on the ship. He was snuck onto the ship and didn't have a place to sit.
But
or-
he's a small person that was on
That
a
wasn't
massive
Vector,
soul
though.
ship. He wasn't on
All
on,
right, all
on
right, guys.
Qimir ship.
Okay.
The Vector
what
is
I'm
what
saying,
she
Yeah.
ran
but
away.
what
you
I'm
think
saying-
it's a good story decision? Okay.
No. I think what you're positioning as a better story situation is like they sneak on the ship together and they squeeze in. That's not a better solution. I think the better solution would have been that they just divide and that she somehow gets off the planet. Like, they just say, like, we can't be together. We need to divide so that
Sure.
because then they, like, it kind of forces, Basil has to go one way or the other, right? And maybe May says, I'll lure them away, right? And, like, she's more, like, it's their home planet. Like, they should have a little more understanding. Like, there could have been a way for them to do it, that she could have gotten away, but they obviously needed to give, I think the other part of it was that they needed to give something to the Jedi to slow them down. So the idea
Yes,
of giving
that's the whole
May
thing, yeah.
with a wiped memory, it's like you got something so it stops them, right? And then they think, oh, we've got this, we got the culprit. She'll be able to explain everything, but her mind is like an 8-year-old memory, right? Like from when she was 8. So she's really useless by the end of it. But no, I'm still with you though, Nate. I'm still with you.
I don't think the trajectory of the outcome of this episode would have changed. They would have still had Soul to blame it on.
Right, but then
There'd
they
be
would
no
have.
lead though. There'd be no lead to follow for Vernestra.
Yeah.
Because if he'd been hiding this long, there was no way for to find him.
And
So
she needs
they
him.
needed some way to have a connection or some way to track them down.
Yes.
And again, May said they're going to use me to find you, and they knew that was coming. So the best way to prepare for it was to just wipe the mind. Because even if she got away, she would be hunted to the ends of the earth by the Jedi, because that's their only lead to this past pupil. of
Exactly,
hers. So,
and the fact that, like, with Soul dead, exactly. There's just there's no one else that they could really rely on. So they had to give them something, but something that wasn't as useful as it could have been. And it looks like Vernestra's hoping that she can maybe pull something, because she knows
Maybe
that
undo,
May was potentially trained by her pupil, right? When we get to the next little bit. But so I feel like there's a sense of, like, I'm going to still, like, keep you and try to see if I can fuck with your mind to see if I can pull any of these memories that you can't remember, because I think she's aware that someone probably wiped her mind. Right?
I will say, shout out to Amandla Stenberg, who, next to JJ in this episode, I think gave a really good emotional moment here. As much as I was frustrated by the decision to wipe May's memory, it was still really, really sad to sort of see, like, her trying to recant the poem and then stop at the end of her sentences. And I think, I think that was excellent acting, cutting through, to me, not the best story choice. And the fact that she was still able to pull that off as a performer, I thought was really, really good. And I felt that connection for them. And I felt that connection between them really for the first time in this show.
Yeah, I feel like, to your point, you're absolutely right. Like, I feel like they work so hard to get to a point where they could reconnect, and once we get this moment, they're ripping us away again
by their own choice.
Right, but they, again, they're sacrificing that so that they can get away. But to your point, it really did feel like if there was anything worthwhile to take away from their characters, was this moment of them reconnecting. It just was short-lived. We didn't really get to experience it because the first time they were actually reunited, they argued, right? And now here they're actually on the same page. And she apologizes for starting the fire, and she apologizes for not believing her, and so on and so forth. And there was just a sense of resolve, and now they're kind of back at zero, right? Like, now that they wiped memory, she's off with the Jedi. And now she's going to go train, and she's got to try to get back to her and get her back, which again makes for an interesting season 2. But I'm far more interested with the other seeds that were planted than this. Like, in all honesty, if it's just Osha next season and there is no May, I'm fine with that. I don't know if we need 2 of them, right? Like, I don't know if it's really important. And maybe we spend most of the time in a season 2 with just Osha.
Maybe they just replace Basil with May, and she just sniffs out Qimir.
I mean, I also like the fact that this scene that they talk about, they don't know where that their creepy little poem comes from, or is that earlier?
No, that's
in this moment.
Yeah. Where did it come from? If they don't remember learning it, who told it to them?
I'm sure it was something that was sort of. I'm wondering, because it does sound like sort of a prayer. It
sounds like a spell, almost.
Spell that splits them.
Yeah.
That was to split them.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you listen to the words, it feels like it's taking it, and that is what was told to them when they're split.
That's
and
how they turn them into.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's stuck in them, and they don't know how it is. And that's the other thing. Like, we don't really, like, we understand the sort of big picture of what happened with them and how they came to be, but we never got the sort of confirmed how it happened.
The how of it
exactly.
all. Yeah.
We just know it was magic, and it was the Force, and it was just all sorts of like buzzwords that were kind of thrown out there. But I thought we were supposed to get something a little more definitive, even based on an interview I read with Leslie Headland from last week that said, "Oh yeah, you have to tune in for next week's episode because there is an answer to that." So
maybe there was, and it got cut, and she wasn't aware, or something along those lines.
She's going to be aware. She is going to be signing off on these episodes, but I feel like it's maybe something got left out. I'll give you that. It could be a big maybe, but like, I just feel like maybe her response was, or her interpretation of the explanation was where Soul laid it all out in that little like dialogue banter. And I'm just like, but didn't we already know this? And isn't this more just confirmation of what was like alluded as like a mystery, but was already just really there? Like, I don't know. So
yeah, we see May brought to Vernestra in binders. She asks the Jedi to remove May's restraints. Vernestra asks the Jedi to remove May's restraints and to leave them. Leave us. Vernestra begins to question her, and May says she doesn't remember killing anyone. She does, however, remember a fire destroying her home, a man killing her mother, that she ran away and that she needs to tell someone, but she can't find her. She tells him that the man that killed her mother was a Jedi. He was her friend, a kind, brilliant, compassionate man, and he did a terrible thing. We watch as we see exactly how Vernestra covered up the mistakes made 16 years ago. We see her whispering her apology to her friend's dead body, then setting it ablaze and then sending him into the waters on Brendok. She explains to the Senate Tribunal and to Senator Drellick that 16 years ago, 4 Jedi discovered a force cult of witches. A conflict ensued, and there were many casualties, and these Jedi conspired to keep their actions a secret. Then, when the truth was threatened to come out, a rogue Jedi named Sol killed his accomplices. She tells them that she believes he ended his own life. So, what did you guys think of Vernestra's decision to betray Sol and throw him under the bus at the feet of the Senate Tribunal?
Well, I gotta say, it's clear that this isn't her first rodeo or cover up, because it's like she moved pretty quickly. She knew how to sort of spin this. You know, she had all the right pieces of information. Because obviously, when she walked into the Covenant's sort of like base of operation, you know, she put it all together. She could hear the voices. I imagine she was also sort of seeing it at the same time while also hearing it. We just didn't actually see it. But, you know, she knows how it went down. And May saying, you know, someone came and killed her mother, it just sort of validated and confirmed one piece of information. And I think she was just able from there to kind of spin it in a way that made sense. But this is, again, something that we all kind of thought was going to happen, right? Like, either Sol wasn't the bad guy and was going to be made to be the bad guy, or Sol's the bad guy and would definitely take the fall. And I think that's kind of more or less what's happened here. Like, he's not a bad guy by the traditional terms, but he did make a bad decision, and he is going to take the fall for it. You know, at least Vernestra had the kindness of actually giving him a proper burial. Because she had enough respect for him.
Yeah, but she also tarnished his name forever in the Jedi.
That's why she
history
apologized
books.
Before she burned him. It's okay.
Yeah, I don't know. She
no,
done him
I know.
dirty, in my opinion.
But like, again, so we go from one shady Jedi to another
Exactly.
shady Jedi, and that's just again highlighting what the what Senator Rancourt was saying, is that, you know, it's unchecked power, right? It's this idea that, you know, their emotions are getting the best of them. They did in those moments. In the moments that we see with Sol and Mother Anastasia, you know, in Brendock 16 years ago, that is a reaction of emotion, right? Like, that is totally what the senator is referencing. And I think whatever happened between Vernestra and Qimir is definitely going to be a reflection of emotions. So, yeah, I think it was really interesting how they kind of shifted so quickly. And especially for a character like Vernestra, who's in, like, you know, comic books, literature, kind of seen as a hero, if I'm not mistaken. So
again, someone to look up to, much like Anakin was at first.
Right.
He was this Padawan who had a bright and shining future. But again, she wielded a purple lightsaber, which is pretty close to red. They are very passionate Jedi, purple lightsaber wielders.
Well, I see a lot of comparisons between her and Mace Windu to a certain degree, especially just the way Mace approached Anakin and trying to get him to do the dirty deed with, you know, spying on Palpatine and so on and so forth. Like, there's a lot of parallels there of, again, overstepping unchecked power and this idea of you know, kind of manipulation to a certain degree. It is manipulation, you know, but yeah, I'm interested in seeing if we get more of this story in a season 2. I think we would, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is where we see her plot coming to a head, and I do think the decision to betray the memory of her friend is multi-layered, because yes, you could argue, and, you know, she could argue that she's keeping it a secret to protect the Jedi Order from interference with the Senate, but at the same time, you know, clearly she is harboring. Yeah, she's harboring a very dark secret, and so she's kind of doing that magic trick, right? She's showing you what you want to see while doing something in the background, and yeah, I think you know, seeing her apologize to him, and seeing her spread those lies at the same time, the way they cut back and forth in this moment, I thought was really, really compelling, and I think it might be one of my favorite moments from Vernestra all season. And I think
she wasn't in it that much,
sure,
right?
But I think this far exceeds what we had hyped up with the lightsaber whip. And I think, you know, I've seen some chatter online about Rebecca Henderson's abilities as an actress, and I actually think she's for what we do get, I think she was great, and I think she'd be great to see more of her, more of Senator Rancourt in, as you said, in a second season. I think the second season would be more centered on her, right? We've got
Yes,
our
it
main
should be.
players kind of moved
Yes.
out of the way, and so I think she can really shine in a season 2.
Yeah, I think this was definitely an audition, not like a master, a masterful audition for her to carry the story in a season 2. You know what I mean? Like, people know who her character is, so she kind of sat in the background more so in this season to allow, another story to unfold. I think now she can come in for a season 2 and really take it from there. And, you get the politics side, and you get her trying to locate and, unravel the mystery around, what's going on with Osha and Qimir, trying to track him and stuff like that. I think there's just, again, a lot of potential there for a season 2 or a story somewhere else, I guess. You know what I mean? I'll just keep saying that because, there is no confirmation. And, last week when we were talking with Klein, he's even on the fence of if this would actually get a season 2, not because of necessarily anything outside of just the fan reactions and stuff like that, which for all intents and purposes were dumb at times.
For sure. But it sounds like you want to talk about season 2 quite a bit. So it sounds like you might want to get to the last section of our Watch Club here, our predictions, what you foresee happening next. Let's get to the last sequence in this episode and then get into that. Cutting back to the moment with Vernestra and May, seeing her explain that Soul justified every selfish step with the love that he had for May's sister. May, confused, says, "My sister?" And Vernestra asks her if the name Osha meant anything to her. She says the Jedi have failed you and that she's going to make it right. But first, she needs her help. She says she needs her to find someone, a pupil of hers, before he turned to evil, and May agrees. We then see Osha back on the unknown planet, staring out at the sea as the waves crash in. Qimir joins her. They look out. They look at each other, and then he wraps his hand around hers, and both of them now holding Soul's broken lightsaber. They both now stare out, and we cut to black. But then a set of doors open, and we see Vernestra walking into a dimly lit room. She says, "Sorry to disturb you, Master. We need to talk." Our view lowers as it's revealed she's talking to the one and only Master Yoda. We cut to the credits, and that's the end of The Acolyte, Season 1. So, Darcy, what did you think of Vernestra asking May to help her find Qimir? Osha has now fully become the Acolyte, and Vernestra is finally opening up to the High Council through Master Yoda. What do you think any of this means, and what do you foresee happening next?
First off, I just want to say that this scene with Qimir and Osha looking out, perfect time for that end episode reveal of Plagueis looking out from the cave. Or
Pull
whatever.
back.
Would have made a bit more sense, and I would have been questioning so much.
Oh,
in the
that's
middle of the
actually,
episode.
yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
But I guess they didn't want to do 2 reveals back to back, whatever. The whole thing about Yoda getting involved, I feel like this is going to be, she's trying to take this cover up to the next level, and I don't think it's going to go her way. I think if we do get a season 2, it'll be Yoda and just his connection to the Force and his diligence to just do good will be her downfall, because she can't lie to him because he's freaking Master Yoda. They don't make him bad. Don't make him part of any cover-ups, because you can't do that, man. He's
No, but I could see her going and being forthcoming with some details, but not all. Do you know what I mean? Like giving a bit to get guidance from Master Yoda and how to approach this, but not saying everything like, oh, I had to hide the real person who killed everyone at, the Jedis, and I had to blame it on Soul. I don't think she's going to go
remains
that far.
the secret.
I
think she opens up about everything else. I think Qimir remains her secret. And I don't know how you keep a secret from Yoda, like you said, Darcy, but at the same time, Palpatine kept it from everyone.
Well, yeah,
so
I will say this, like Palpatine, Yoda's the most powerful Jedi, but he couldn't sense that Palpatine was who he was, right? So I think that they're like, again, there's always cloudy, foggy intentions. I honestly think that she is going to, I was at it the other way around. I think she would confess that she had a pupil that has turned to the dark side that she needs to track, and that she wanted to get the help of this, of May to do so. And like maybe she's going to him.
I think she's too ashamed. I think she's too ashamed of something like that.
But then what is she going to him for? Like
to
what?
to inform him of why the Senate is like freaking out. Right? She lets him know. She lets him know the half truths. That's what this series has been about, right?
So she's gonna go. She's gonna go tell. Right. So she's gonna go tell him that Soul did all these things, and that made all these.
No,
like,
I think she's gonna tell him exactly. I think she's going to give the same lie that she gave to the Senate.
Okay.
As like a half truth, right? Like she'll omit things.
Right.
To keep.
Then I don't really
Qimir
understand the
secret.
value of like why we had this scene, other than just then the idea that
Yoda, dude.
That's it. That's it. And I think that feels kind of like that was
cheap.
it, right? I was thinking something else along the lines of like, kind of getting it in. But you're right, Darcy. You can't get Yoda into some sort of cover up. You can't dirty his name. If anything, he's going to reveal that it is a cover up, right?
That's what I'm saying. Like he will be the one to bring everything to light and explain why
you have been yes.
why it also maybe explains why he's so afraid of Anakin, like another Vergence in the Force, or he's another being created by the Force, seemingly. So that might, again, all season 2. All I know is, again, there are stories to be told in some media following this season.
For myself, to say what I would foresee, I've kind of seed planted all of that based on what was given to us. The one thing that really does feel out of place is this whole Yoda thing. I don't mind him being there, obviously, and being in as a character that obviously exists. But it was said that Yoda wouldn't be making an appearance. And I guess technically this is an appearance. It's the back of his head, and it's more of an insinuation of like a timeline piece rather than anything else. But I don't really see the value in bringing him into this story. I think again, everything else that they seed planted before, Qimir and Osha, which I think might be explored both as like the rule of 2, but could also be explored as maybe a little more romantic. It'll be interesting to see where that goes and how much that makes like fanboys' heads blow up.
But he's so much older.
Well, or just the idea of like how sexualized it is and all this sort of stuff, because it's Star Wars and it's family or whatever. It doesn't need to be like that. But again, like you can't deny that there's some sense of chemistry between Qimir and Osha that's far beyond just master and apprentice mentality, right? So there is something in the way he grabs the saber. I think he's also really, I think he's attracted to her. I think that there's a sense of like he's intrigued by her, and that has led to like an attraction sort of thing. So I think that that's going to be explored in some ways, and how Plagueis fits into it. If he's just like the dude just watching this all unfold, I don't know. He's like the voyeur, twirling his mustache, as he watches, and he's like, oh. But
he doesn't have a mustache. He doesn't have a nose, but
well, he might have some hair. But yeah, that's cool. And then obviously this whole cover up situation. I'd like to see how that unfolds, and I think that the politics side can be explored a little bit more. So that's what I would like to see from a season 2.
I foresee all of that. No, I think to your point of having, I think Darcy, you mentioned like Yoda almost being the doubling down, if you will, on. I think we'll continue to see Rey in court and the Senate continuing to push further and further into Vernestra's goings on at the Jedi Council or the Jedi within the Jedi Order. But I also think it's tricky because Yoda, initially, Leslie Headland said Yoda was one of those things that like is kind of off limits, if you will, and here she's managed to put him in. I'm wondering if that might almost be dangerous for a season 2, only because the idea that is she gonna get free reign with Yoda in this time, or
no,
or are they gonna bring in a character that is going to be a representative for Yoda, speaking for Yoda, that guy that maybe we heard on the other end of the communicator, and in that point, does that then give fans all the reasons to be like, well, why did you promise Yoda if we're not gonna get Yoda, right? And
I don't think this promises Yoda. You think this promises Yoda for season 2?
I think it pushes Yoda as someone that might be continuing to look into this situation. I don't know, why would you put why put Yoda there? if he's not going to be
Because
involved.
Yoda was everybody's master. If she's just going for advice, he's everybody's master. Like he's the one you turn to in these times of need.
Right.
Especially the fact that again, he in the High Republic books, he played a part in one of the stories, despite him being untouchable. He does have stories. He has lived a life, and he is a Jedi, so he's got stories to tell too. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do see more from him, or even Yaddle. Again, another character who got an excellent story in the High Republic.
Maybe they're
and I'd
like,
love to
we'll
see
give you
more of
Yaddle.
that.
There you go.
Yeah, I'd love that. Yaddle's great.
I could see them. No, but I totally. I think that's the better play is to give them someone else that might be that. I honestly think that this is just a tidbit of like, you could see him in season 2.
Mm-hmm.
You may see
Just
him
for
in
a
season
scene
2.
or two, maybe. Though.
Exactly. It's not going to be like he's involved in the story. He's getting updates. It's just he's there, right? Like a lot of the people were saying, like, oh well. You're doing a show in this timeline and we don't even get to see Yoda? Well, there you go. You got to fucking see Yoda. So chill, right? And you also got to see Plagueis. So calm your shit, right? So it's like, maybe we shouldn't have jumped to such drastic conclusions about this show. Yet I'm sure they're all just like, yeah, it was okay. But like, I don't know if this confirms that he's going to be an integral part for season 2. I think it just is a reminder that he's in existence during this timeline, because there has been like there's only been one mention of him, if I'm not mistaken, and it was in the whole like M count situation, right? So I think so.
Well, I do foresee something else for season 2. Something that we've brought up in the past, but
A dyad?
I
Is it
think
a dyad
that,
in the Force?
No, I think that
Something that hasn't been seen
May
for centuries?
is going to, in season 2, obviously slowly remember more and more, but I don't think it comes mostly from Vernestra. I actually think it comes from someone else who she has connected with in the past, and that is Mother Coral. I think will make a return in a season 2 through speaking to May through the Force, obviously staying hidden, but I could totally see them bringing her back, and then that could be part of May's motivation to bring Osha, not necessarily back from the dark side, quote unquote, but more along the lines of come back to our family. We can finally be a family again. And I think that would be kind of a neat way to continue May's story. And Coral.
Yeah. Well, Leslie Headland said, there was no body.
No body.
Right. So like I think she's definitely insinuating that Coral's out there. And like, who knows? Like, she was, what was her species again, Nate?
She's a Zabrak.
Yeah, her being a Zabrak has like some significance in regards to
the Night Sisters.
At least I think like Night Sisters, Night Sisters and Dathomirians, and I think that could definitely play a part. Who knows if Mortis gods could be tied into this as well? With Aboleth or whatever her name was, the mother. That is rumored to be.
You're going all the way to Ahsoka season 2.
Well, but they're saying that she's going to be in Ahsoka. But like again, like I'm.
You think Coral is Abeloth?
Not Coral.
Okay.
I think that Coral may, and what this sort of religious belief, witches were kind of steeped in, could come from something that's like ancient as far back as maybe Mortis gods or something along those lines. Dave Filoni loved her pitch apparently, like just absolutely adored the idea of this sort of story, and I think there's probably some collaboration that's happening behind the scenes here, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if we see something in an Ahsoka season 2 that somewhat connects back to what we've seen in this show, just to show the breadth of like how far some of these beliefs and some of these traditions extend, right? Like, he's tapping into Mortis gods in Ahsoka, right? And like, who knows how if they do get to like the mother and Aboleth and stuff like that in a season 2, perhaps this witch cult had some sense of belief in her. Connected. Again, foreseeing some weird things, but there's potential there to explore that. But I love the idea that she's trying to save her family, though, from that idea, Nate. Like, Coral wants to come back and bring the kids together and be like, let's go get let's go have a picnic and just
go have some spice creams,
Yeah.
Sure. I think I also foresee what we already talked about. Osha is going to fall in love with Qimir, and they're going to love each other, and then Plagueis is going to try to kill Qimir, and then he'll think he has, but he hasn't, and then Qimir becomes the first.
He's gonna go for Osha,
Sure.
because he has affection for her, but then it's really him that he wants to kill, so he kills Qimir.
No, I don't
so
think he
could
kills
take
him. I think Qimir somehow gets away and becomes the first Ren. There we go.
Yeah.
Done.
Yep.
We wrote this season. We wrote the whole series. You're welcome. Let's get to our
Interesting.
overall thoughts on this episode.
Yeah, hold on though. Actually,
what?
before we get there, they never explain that.
Because it's going to be in season 2.
Yeah. He doesn't know Plagueis. Plagueis is there just getting info on this other dark force wielding.
So we're on the
person
consensus
who might
then that he
become the knight.
doesn't know that he's there.
I don't think he knows
doesn't
that he's
know?
on that planet. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
But he came out of his own little cave hole. Like
Yeah.
he was like in his room. He was
being a
like,
creep.
Well,
"Hey,
we've
where
seen
you
how
going?"
good the dark side of the force can hide you or whisk you away. So what's to say you can't use that against another dark force wielder?
I
Like,
guess it's I guess it's like any possibility. I was certain because she's like there was a mention in an interview where it was like because she's been doing so much press after these episodes, right? Like spoiler, and like people are like asking her like, was that the Knights of Red, like was that Kylo's theme? And she was like, yes, and there's a reason why that you'll discover. And it's like
in season 2.
she didn't say that part, so.
All right, well, for this season, let's get to our overall thoughts on both this episode and our overall thoughts and final score. Something we haven't been doing all Watch Club, but saving it for this episode. We're going to get to our overall thoughts on the episode and final score for the season of The Acolyte, which we're going to be rating on a scale of 1 to 5 secret Sith Lords. Darcy, I'll get you to kick us off.
yeah, I mean, the season had some ups and downs for sure. This final episode to me really, and it sets up a lot of a season 2, which I don't always like, but the potential stories that they've set up are intriguing enough that I do hope they get a second season. And just again, the choreography and the performances from the cast across the board are what are standout from the show. Like the fights are incredible. We get some amazing dialogue from everyone at different points, and this final episode gives everyone a time to shine and remind you of why you like these characters or want to know more about these characters. So overall, I think the season did do a good job of introducing us to this timeline and the rise of the Sith as we know them, and beginning of the fall of the Jedi to the point where we see them in the original trilogy. So yeah, I mean, I guess I'll give this season a solid 4 out of 5 because there is enough for me to like in it that I'm willing to look past the stuff I don't like, which to me is Star Wars as across the board, basically, because there's always stuff you can nitpick, but as long as you come out of it wanting to watch more, I think it's done a good job, and this season has done that for me, where I do want to return to this some of these stories at least.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think for as far as the finale goes, I think the finale brought together all the best parts of the series. It featured excellent fight choreography with standout lightsaber duels as well that kind of mixed into that. This hand-to-hand combat style that is just so celebrated with the style of the show is on full display in this episode. Also, just the cast delivered fantastic performances. Manny Jacinto, Lee Jung-jae, Amanda Stenberg, they are outstanding in this episode, and they've been outstanding throughout this series, even if the writing hasn't been to their favor. They've still delivered really compelling performances, and that's hooked me more than anything else. I think the episode successfully answers some lingering questions while also planting seeds and building blocks for season 2. And I think that has left me, as Darcy said, more interested in a season 2. Like I've said, I don't want to get ahead of myself because we don't know if there will be a season 2. But like, I would be interested in seeing these stories unfold, things that they've established here with Qimir with Qimir and Osha being being the rule of 2, Plagueis being there, Vernestra trying to find Manny. I think this could be explored in any multitude of ways, whether it be a book, comic book, or series. But yeah, with outstanding performances from Manny and Amandla, and then we could have Rebecca really lean into Master Vernestra. I think a season 2 would be great. But it, again, much like the season, there are some story or writing issues that I hope that they can resolve before we get to a season 2. yeah, so like, and as far as the entire series goes, I think, as we've talked about throughout this watch club, this show is far from perfect, but I think with the finale, it sort of sticks to landing in that it answers questions while also setting some stuff up for an exciting opportunity in season 2. Again, the entire series was just fantastic performances from the entire cast. Those who we had, those who were even lost, like Charlie Bennett and Daphne Keane, who were also outstanding. But like, again, the show is without its flaws. Like, the mystery structuring in this show felt too obvious at times. The pacing for some of the episodes were either too fast or too slow. There were things that were put into place, as we talked about, just for plot convenience or to move things forward. And, and it wasn't, there was no shortage of just like dull dialogue at times, like just things that were just so, here's the point. But despite those issues, I think this series does really deliver some cool concepts and incredible action sequences. It's so good. So yeah, I think this is a good addition to the Star Wars franchise, and balancing its shortcomings with great performances, standout moments, great choreography. I think, yeah, this is a solid 3.5 out of 5 Secret Sith Lords. It's good. It's not, it hasn't reached the heights of something like Andor or even Ahsoka. Like, Ahsoka was on fire when that show dropped. I know there were people that didn't like all the episodes or just the entire season, but like, it was firing at all cylinders. So I feel like this show is just found its footing, or its balance, if you will, and hopefully it can carry forward with a stronger season 2.
Hopefully it can.
Hopefully.
Yes. Yeah. I think this episode for me exceeded episode 5 as my favorite episode of the series. I think this,
wow,
even though it still featured Basil and had some strange writing decisions, I think at the very least, I think this was the most consistent episode we've gotten since episode 1. The combat moments, like you said, like, they're just on a higher level, and it was thrilling to see them play out. I was excited to see the Plagueis reveal in live action, but then I was a little disappointed that that was the only moment that we really got from him. We never really circled back to him, and getting to see the lightsaber bleeding for the first time in live action, though, that was a standout moment. There was some great music in this episode, and of course, as we've all been saying, the performances in this episode specifically from Lee Jung-jae and Amanda Stenberg were excellent. I had a really good time with this one, and I hope, if we do get a season 2, that we can kind of get episodes more like this, that are a little more straightforward. Obviously, this was the episode that's, like episode 7, meant to reveal a lot and give us a lot of answers. But I also just felt like this episode kind of just moved along much more smoothly because of that. And so if they can go into the next season and sort of say, we're going to tone back the mystery a little bit and just give you more of a straightforward action Star Wars series, then I'd be happy about that. This season of Star Wars Acolyte, though, was very mixed for me. I think we started off really strong, and I think as much of the disjointed storytelling and loose character motivations might have been there, I didn't really notice them until we got to episode 4, and beyond that, I think there were so many mysteries that felt like they were being created for mystery's sake. And I started to recognize both the incredible real-world sets and the ones that were more like sound stages. And, I think I started to notice the episodes would be paced very awkwardly, and I don't know, it just led to characters randomly changing their minds to help unravel some of these mysteries. And again, it felt like there were just so many moments that were for the plot. And if there's a conversation or discussion put out by Leslie Headland, like Justin, you said that Leslie's been doing a lot more interviews, more spoiler-filled stuff. If we get like a behind the scenes, and even if they find ways to sort of explain every little moment, it still doesn't change the fact that a lot of these moments felt forced too often. And, very often in the show, we got a lot of the what and not enough of the why. And that's what really hurt it for me. We do these watch clubs because we have fun predicting each week how aligned we are with the show and its direction. But hearing May ask Osha, what does she want in this episode, felt like the first time we've ever gotten a clear answer about Osha's motivations. And so it still didn't fully make sense to me, but at least I knew what she wanted. Looking back at some of the scores that I gave previous Star Wars series from Disney Plus, in terms of quality, I think this show comes closer to the Book of Boba Fett. At the time, I went back and re-listened to it, and at the time, I gave that season a 4 out of 5. But I really do think it is actually maybe more of a 3.5 out of 5. And so that's the exact score I'm going to give The Acolyte. I think it's fair for a show that gave us outstanding performances, intriguing ideas on how the Jedi operated during the High Republic, and some of the best fight choreography ever, not just in Disney Plus Star Wars, but in Star Wars. But it still failed to execute on its sort of initial promises. Yeah, I think one of the original pitches I remember hearing for this series was that it followed a Sith during the time of the High Republic, which, as much as I enjoyed seeing the hubris of the Jedi and the secrets of Vernestra, I think the show could have benefited from maybe leaning more into that original pitch and staying focused more on Qimir and May or Osha and less of the Jedi side of things. Again, I dig what they managed to do with it, but I think there was an opportunity that felt very missed, where they could have focused a little bit more on the Sith, given us a little bit more of a darker show, and maybe kept it a little bit more clear and concise. So yeah, I'm going to also give it a solid 3.5 out of 5 Sith Lords.
I enjoyed the original pitch of Kill Bill meets Frozen. I thought that was like an interesting angle, and you can see the Frozen aspect, obviously.
Yeah.
Right? I think that was also...
Yeah, the Kill Bill aspect was apparent earlier on, and then that became more muddled as they revealed that mystery.
Yes. Well, like, it's interesting, too, because the whole idea that Amanda Stenberg, even through the trailers, it wasn't quite distinct that she was playing two people, and then in press she was talking about it without really, like, not many people were really confirmed, but when we saw the screeners, we were like, oh, okay, well, obviously this makes sense, and there was already suspicion of that. And I also think saying that it's Frozen meets Kill Bill, sisters, meets, obviously the violence and the intensity of choreography with Kill Bill, or like a sort of a revenge story with even that aspect of it, they just went a little softer on that, right? Like, I think you say it best, Nate, like, if you're going to go there.
Go there.
Go there.
Yeah.
Right. Like, if you're gonna do it, do it. So, hopefully next season can be a little like, I don't mind mystery, but just make it more interesting. Right. Because already I'm interested in like what could be the case with Vernestra and Qimir and, how that will unravel. And I want to know more about it.
I just hope the answers that we get to are more satisfying than some of the answers that we got in this one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or the sort of half-baked answers that feel like, you need more information to kind of understand it. So yeah. I agree.
But that is it for this final Watch Club for Star Wars The Acolyte. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts, if you haven't already. And if you want to write into the show with your thoughts or predictions on the shows we cover in Watch Club, well, you don't have to have your sister's memory wiped and run off with a super sexy dark side user. Instead, Justin... who's our super sexy dark side user, can you let our lovely geeky acolytes know how they can reach us by HoloMessage?
I don't know why I took that as a compliment, but I love it. I love it. Super sexy Sith user. Yes, they can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or they can reach out to us on Twitter at GeekcentricYT, or formerly known as Twitter, or on Instagram at wearegeekcentric. Also TikTok at wearegeekcentric as well. And I think the Discord. Yeah, you can reach us on the Discord as well. We got that in the show notes. That link actually does work. I'm always trying to figure out how that link works, but
yeah, it's a mystery. It's like the Force. We don't know.
Yeah,
we don't know how it works.
It's a box. It's a mystery box within a mystery box,
yeah.
And sometimes it works
within an enigma.
If it doesn't, feel free to email us, and we'll get you hooked up.
But definitely give that a try. Try clicking on it and see if it works.
Yeah, we need to know.
You'll understand all the mysteries of the Force. We also have a ton of other great episodes covering the latest in movies and TV shows, including our recent spoiler-filled discussion for The Bear Season 3, as well as our spoiler-free reviews for Twisters, House of the Dragon Season 2, Inside Out 2, The Boys Season 4, and Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. We also have some great interviews out now, like our most recent interviews with the Canadian animators from Pixar who worked on Inside Out 2. Justin had a great chat with them about their roles at Pixar, what emotions are driving their consoles, and their favorite Pixar movies. So check that interview out, as well as all of our interviews, both here on your podcast service of choice or over on YouTube at youtube.com/geekcentric. Leave a 5-star review, leave a comment. The Hot Geek Summer is only going to get hotter as we continue to have some good geeky stuff coming through. Darcy, Justin, thank you so much for joining me for this, our 22nd Watch Club. And as we say, possibly, maybe, for the last time, you're with me.
I'm with you.
Always one.
But born as two.